You certainly are, and it's 18 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock here on Adelaide's Coast FM. Rob McLennan with you on a Wednesday morning. Lovely to be back after a 5-week break. With me in the studio are my regular guest, Rosetta Rosa, who's the CEO of the Catalyst Foundation, together with a guest who's joining us for the first time, Margaret Hawkins, who's president of the SARVRA, and we'll find out exactly who they are because good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Great to have you here, Margaret.
Thank you.
Rosetta, lovely to see you again.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
And what a lovely way to be treated by all of your staff. I'm very colourful today, I've been told, so I'm in my purples.
Yes, you are. Rosetta, introduce Margaret Hawkins, please.
I have an absolute pleasure to do this morning. So Margaret Hawkins, President of the South Australian Retirement Village Residents Association, and we're going to keep referring to SARVRA.
Yes.
Margaret and the association work actively with ageing people who make decisions to live in retirement villages, and the association has a wealth of information to support those people that are either considering moving in or are actually already in a retirement village, and there's different ways of living and different, I suppose, codes of conduct and rules, and that's where the association is really, really critical in the work that they do.
Excellent.
But I'm going to let Margaret sort of tell her story a little bit more.
Yes.
But if I may sort of go on to, I suppose, why I've invited Margaret here today.
Yes.
So SARVRA and the Catalyst Foundation, we have some shared space in common, and that is we are both very, very focused on making sure that ageing people have information at their fingertips.
Yep.
So our information is different, but the cohort that we support and work with are very similar. So both parties a couple of months ago entered into a memorandum of understanding to work together to continue to support ageing people to live their best lives in their community. This made sense to us because, as I was saying, Robert,
yes,
the organisations have a mantra to support and inform and increase people's understanding of a whole range of services available, as well as their rights and options, and that's where Margaret comes in,
right,
and the association. So things to do with rights and options and legislation and how you navigate all of that within a retirement village is Margaret's best skill suite that she will be able to elaborate today. But look, our organisations, we both are members of the Retirement Village Committee under the auspices of the Minister for Ageing Well via the Office of the Ageing Well. Such a long thing.
That's state government.
I know, state government.
Yep.
But for your listeners, basically what that means is that the state government is responsible for the legislation that governs retirement villages, and both Margaret and I sit in on that committee because the legislation has gone and continues to go through some reforms and changes, and so we're both there representing older people that live within the retirement village communities. And we have some exciting joint development information program that I'll talk to a little bit more down the track, called the Downsizing, or the right sizing, as I say, because sometimes we assume that ageing older people have to go into smaller sort of lived-in environments, and it's actually not about size, but it's about the right size that fits for your life at the time.
Yep.
So I am going to leave it for now, and I'll let Margaret talk a little bit more about what SARVRA does, and then I think if through your commentary there, Rob, we'll talk a little bit about the program that we've got on offer.
Absolutely. Margaret, before you begin, I'd never heard of SARVRA, SAVRA, the South Australian Retirement Villages Residents Association. When did it begin?
Oh, in the middle 1990s, I think.
Right.
Yeah, it would have been in the 1990s.
So it's been around a long time.
It has.
Yes. And you obviously meet regularly and...
Yes. Our committee meets monthly.
Yes.
We have a committee of 8 members now, all of whom are volunteers.
Yes.
And they live in retirement villages as far away as Port Elliot,
right,
as far as Murray Bridge the other way.
Right.
So, and we cover all South Australia.
You represent all retirement villages?
Not all. There are over 700 retirement villages in South Australia.
700?
Just retirement villages.
But
then we have the aged care facilities as well. But not every retirement village has residents who want to be members of SARVRA.
Sure.
There is a membership fee.
Yes.
Which last year was put up to $10 a year.
Oh, good heavens, that breaks the bank.
It does. It's 1.5 cups of coffee.
Yes.
And that covers all the residents within their unit that they purchase.
Right.
Sorry, don't purchase. They have a right to reside.
Sure. Yeah.
So, so we have a membership base of around 5,000 now. Mm-hmm. So,
and if I was to say, what's your core principle? What are you out to achieve?
We advocate on behalf of the residents.
Yep.
For government changes to policy and make it better for the residents. And we provide information about policy changes and amendments to the retirement villages which may affect the residents. We support and advocate for conflict resolution within village communities.
Yes.
And we respond to concerns that they might have, and we either refer them to other agencies or to the Office of the Ageing Well if they can't, and they can assist further. We undertake village visits,
right?
And in fact, this coming month in March, we have 2 villages that I'm going to go out and put a presentation regarding the new RV Act. So that's already programmed for March. So,
right.
And then later on in March, along with Catalyst, we're doing something else down the southeast.
Yes. So. And does SARVRA get involved with the owners of some of these retirement villages?
Not really. The operators have their base.
Yep.
We advocate mainly for the residents.
Right.
Their concerns from the people who've actually got lived experiences. We know what we encountered when we moved in.
Yes.
And we can give them advice of how to act.
Yeah.
So.
Fantastic. I've told Rosetta in the past that my brother and I had to place our parents in retirement village, and initially it was very successful, but it's a very stressful task. And
it's a major change to someone's life.
Absolutely.
From going to, say, a 3 or 4 bedroomed house, down to a 1 or 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom possibly unit.
Yes.
Downsizing is a great change to someone's life.
I think if I can just step in there,
yes.
I mean, whilst it's a challenge, but I think, you know, from my experience in having spoken to a number of residents who have decided to make that move, what is absolute gold is and look, every village is different, but the one common thing is the comradeship that you build. So that's the reason why it's called villages, because the group of people, I mean, you've all got your independent dwelling.
It's a community.
But it's a community.
Yes.
And I think, you know, as we age, the sense of belonging and having people around you becomes even more important. In fact, it's one of the social indicators of longevity is, you know, not being socially isolated is actually very good for all of us.
Can I throw an absolute curly one to you both? My younger daughter is a music therapist, and she works with lots of people in homes and communities, mainly people who are suffering, is that the right word, from dementia.
Right.
And so that's most of her clientele is of that ilk. But she took Sally and I aside and said, Mum and Dad, I think you should try and stay in your home for as long as possible. How do you both react to that statement?
Look, I think if I can make a comment on two levels.
Yes.
One at a personal level.
Yeah.
I've got a father as well.
Yes.
And whilst every day I think, God, if he's going to have a fall, if he's going, you know, who's going to be at home? My dad lives alone. But at the end of the day, if this is where some of the work we're doing to support people living in retirement villages is really important, because they're not really at the end of like 90 going on to 100 with longevity.
No.
They are still, young enough to make informed decisions about how one needs to live at home independently and safely as well.
Yeah.
So I'm a true believer that if you are in your own environment,
yes.
and it's an environment that you've lived for a very long time,
yes.
that familiarity and having services delivered to you, it does actually make that person feel a sense of mastership. And I think that's really important to try and keep that. And
comfortable and confident.
And never give that up. However, there is a time, and I use the word dignity of care, that if an individual gets to a point where they can't do the basic things like their own toileting, their own feeding, from a dignity perspective, I think that's when you have to say, well, what is the alternative? And sometimes it can't be in one's home.
No.
So it's no different to, the decisions that you make to go into a hospital. We don't like to go into hospitals. We try and take care of ourselves when we're ill in the home, but sometimes those decisions need to be overturned. But what do you think, Margaret?
I agree entirely. In my situation, my husband had passed away.
Yes.
I was living in a double-storey townhouse, and I could see that there was going to be a lot of repairs and maintenance to maintain that.
Yes.
Going into a retirement village meant that I didn't have those problems.
Sure.
They were all operated and paid for out of my monthly fees by the operator. So I don't have to do any gardening, no maintenance. And that, as you get older, is a great concern to elder people.
Can I just stress, my daughter wasn't saying never, she was just saying stay at home for as long as possible. So your point, Rosetta, about dignity is very important.
And one of the reasons that and we'll talk more about the downsizing or right-sizing seminars that we've got, it's to give people all that information well before they get to a point where they can't make those decisions. And so that's what this is really all about.
Yep. Now, downsizing or right-sizing, you've got a seminar. You've got two seminars coming up.
We have two seminars, and Margaret, please chip in as well.
Yes.
I feel as if I'm talking a lot here, but so the partnership that we have with SARVRA has meant that we've been able to build an amazing program which builds the two capabilities of our organisations, and that is that it's first of all, it's a free seminar. The first one is on the 11th of March on a Tuesday, and that's been scheduled at 123 Fisher Street, Fullarton. It's a community centre, Living Choice, and there's also straight after that seminar. It starts at 10 o'clock. And really what we're going to be doing with that whole information is obviously taking people through the process of who SARVRA is, what you can do, what you can expect, how you actually start making decisions about going into a retirement village.
Yes.
And look, it's not for everybody, but I think the purpose of these information is to at least give people an option to know how to make that decision.
Hear.
Then we've got Catalyst, that some of the work that we do, which is where we provide services about one's health, whether it's navigating, the My Aged Care system, or whether it's information about how you access other health services. So we're tagging along with SARVRA, and once they do their bit about what to expect within retirement living, and even going down to the nitty-gritty about, is it a sales contract, or is it, the terminology that you might find yourself when you're dealing with all the legal documents in moving in, that can all be demystified on the day. And then, as I said, after that, we will be supporting the participants with just general information, because those informations about healthcare services, you need those regardless of whether it's in your own home or whether it's in a retirement village unit, as Margaret has described. So we've got that one in City, and then the other one, Margaret and I were just talking that we're going to actually have to fly to Mount Gambier. We're delivering a session in Mount Gambier because the population there is retiring, and they've got some amazing retirement villages in Mount Mount Gambier, and it also coincides with our Mount Gambier Expo.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
And that's on Friday the 14th of March.
That's correct, yep,
Excellent.
in Mount Gambier. So I'm not sure if your listeners go as far as Mount Gambier.
They don't, sadly.
They don't.
No.
So if people are listening and they've got family and friends,
They
pass
spread
on the message.
Word.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, there are 2 community radio stations down there in Mount Gambier where you can spread the word as well. So that's Tuesday the 11th of March at the Living Choices offices, 123 Fisher Street in Fullarton. It starts at 10 o'clock. It'll run for 2 hours?
About an hour and a half,
yeah. Right.
with coffee and,
Yep.
a bit of a break. And
Lovely. I'll be there.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, you should. You should pop in.
So it's developed for anyone thinking about moving into a retirement village. Any prospective resident should consider attending. The seminar is free, as Rosetta touched on. It includes presentations from both Catalyst and SARVRA. SARVRA. I've got to lock that into my head. And, of course, it involves expert advice, professional speakers, an array of information is available. We've covered it all.
We have.
Thank you. And one big plug about our expos. So
yes, please.
That's, I know October's a bit far away, but just a reminder that, and we're going to be coming back here and talking more about our expo. But once again, Catalyst, it's a free telephone service where really our heart is to support vulnerable South Australians. We connect people to services.
Yep.
8168 8776. It's a free telephone information support, and we'd love to have people phone us and even come in and have a cup of coffee with some of our amazing information officers.
Thank you both. It's 24 minutes to 11, and my guests in the studio, Rosetta Rosa, CEO of the Catalyst Foundation, together with Margaret Hawkins, her first time, President of SARVRA, and SARVRA, of course, is the South Australian Retirement Villages Residents Association. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. Here's a gentleman who sadly passed away now, but very, very talented. Gary Shearston from 1965.